Hello, class, and welcome to our Othello Act 4 review. Um, we have seen Iago systematically destroy Iago's self esteem by instilling in him, through the illogical, right, emotional appeals, that Desdemona is cheating on him because she prefers someone who is young and Venetian, and he is old and African. So we notice how Iago is using racism, ageism, stereotyping, all of these fallacious appeals, right? Dogmatism, hasty generalizations, double standards. Again, straw man. So as we get to Act 4, we unfortunately, while watching this systematic destruction of Othello's self esteem and identity, he goes from being so cool, calm, and collected in the beginning. Remember in Act 1, right? Hold up your swords, both of you inclining in the rest. Were it my cue to fight, I should know without a prompter, he says. If anybody's going to start it, it's going to be me. He's very cool, calm, and collected. But we also see in Act 1, right, he says, my life upon her faith, which again is in hubris, to bet your life that someone would never lie to you or cheat on you. Can one predict the future? So, um, again, notice how Act 4 starts with Iago and his hesitations, right? His suggestions. Maybe she was just naked in bed with him an hour or more, not meaning any harm, right? We see his suspicious suggestions here in Act 4, Scene 1, line 4. Um, Now, here is where Othello, right, says, but if I give my wife a handkerchief, right, she is protectress of her honor too. May she give that. So again, what is he saying? He equates her having the handkerchief with her honor. So again, is that something that someone can give you? It almost might be a false analogy for Othello. I think in some ways he's putting too much uh, stress on the handkerchief. Now the problem is she tells an equivocation, a white lie, when he says, "Do you have it?" She says, "I just don't have it on me." But we know she doesn't have it because Amelia has stolen it and given it to Iago, and he's put it in play for the whole plan. So we see how those little white lies can lead to a damaging ethos, right? Which may, in some ways, lead to bigger credibility issues down the road. So a lot of people say, "Oh, it's not a big deal." They try to red herring white lies, equivocate them away that they're not lies. But the reality is a falsehood damages one's ethos. Ethos. One little falsehood could lead to a bigger one. So, um, Yago kind of suggests lines 24, 25, 26 that Cassio, in some ways, has been bragging about it. Down on line 28, he says, but they must blab. He actually uses the words BLAB. When people say you blab about something, you brag about it. Um, Again, Othello at the top of line 34, line 35, lie with her, lie on her. We say lie on her. What then belie her, lie with her? That's fulsome. Handkerchief, confessions, handkerchief, to confess and be hanged for his labor. I mean, it's like that stream of consciousness, right? He's just kind of shouting out his ideas. We get this weird omniscience into what he's thinking. And then he falls into a trance. It's almost like an epileptic fit. That's what a lot of directors portray it as in the play, right? And what does Iago say? Um, line 41, work on my medicine, work. Thus credulous fools are caught, and many worthy and chaste dames even thus, all guiltless meet reproach. What ho, my lord, I say, Othello. He takes pleasure in the fact that he's able to trick Othello. He feels Othello is a gullible, a fool in some ways, right? So we see Iago here is definitely exhibiting the Schadenfreude I spoke of earlier with that essay about language and words and how we don't really have an English equivalent for Schadenfreude. Maybe we'd call someone a hater, but he gets pleasure out of other people's pains. Um, so after his fit, if you would, um, if you kind of moved forward, lines 64, good sir, be a man. Think every bearded fellow that's but yoked may draw with you. Right? This happens all the time. All men are cheated on. It's good. You'd rather know the truth, right? Um, Iago always speaks like he has Othello's best interest in mind, but the reality is although everybody again calls him honest Iago, he lies to everyone else. He's duplicitous with everyone else. The only people he doesn't lie to are himself and us. So Iago's plan is working, right? As the act continues, you can see the setup, right, with Bianca. Again, Othello's convinced. I mean, we're still in Act 4, Scene 1 on line 194. He says, get me some poison, Iago, this night. I'll not expostulate with her, lest her body and beauty unprovide my mind again. This night. And what does Iago say? Do it not with poison. Strangle her in bed, even the bed she hath contaminated. If any of you are writing about, you know, psychopathic murderers in Shakespeare for a psychological analysis, you'll notice there's articles on the database that talk about the idea that killing someone with poison back then was how women did it. It was kind of a female way to commit murder. So Claudius is less of a man for doing it with poison. If you're a real man, right, you strangle or you stab. But again, that's psychologically taxing. I mean, remember the whole idea in Macbeth of the blood on your hands. So we see here, Iago then says, and for Cassio, let me be his undertaker. Line 200, it's kind of like he's teaming up with Othello, right? I'm going to, help you, and I'll get him. We're in this together. When Desdemona comes in, we're still in Act 4, Scene 1, right? Line 221, she says, I would do much to atone them for the love I bear to Cassio. She's saying, I want to bring Othello and Cassio back. Her words just only make it worse for her. And he says to her, line 230, I'm glad to see you mad. And she says, why? And then he calls her devil and strikes her. She says, I have not deserved this. Lodovico says this would not be believed in Venice, right? He reacts with obvious surprise and disapproval. And then Othello says, I'm not gonna apologize. Out of my sight. We actually see him strike her, which is unbelievable to Lodovico, right? And he says to Iago, unfortunately, once Othello exits, line 259, is this noble Moor whom our full Senate call all in all sufficient? Is this the nature whom passion could not shake, whose solid virtue the shot of accident nor dart of chance could neither graze nor pierce? And Iago says he is much changed. Right, lines 259. Again, we considered him so capable. Right? He never let his passion could not shake. He never let his passions overtake him. He was cool, calm, and collected. The three C's. And now he's become this completely different person. So from an identity standpoint, we see how his paranoia has been fueling his character change in a negative way because it's leading to irrational emotional appeals and illogical decisions. Right? And Again, Iago always acting like he doesn't want to say, but he kind of suggests, right? He says the stroke would prove the worst, line 269. And Lodovico says, is it his use or did letters work upon his blood and new create his fault? Right? Basically, Othello's kind of, Iago's kind of suggesting that it's a habit, that it's something that um, happens to Othello with Desdemona a lot. So as the Act 4, Scene 1 comes to a close, um, we see how Iago is again planting the seeds of his plan in his discussion with Lodovico, saying, "Yeah, mark how he continues, right? Keep an eye on him." And Lodovico's like, "I will, right? I can't believe this is happening." So um, Iago's plan has really worked in that he has now discredited the once temperate, right, and just general in front of Lodovico. Um, Desdemona, right? She's defenseless against the charges brought against her. She can't even comprehend them. She can't even believe, right? She says, I cannot even say the word whore. It's not even in her vocabulary. Um, so it really is tragic how much Iago's plan is working. Um, as the act moves on in scene 2, I want to call your attention to, right, line 68 when she says to Othello, I hope my noble lord esteems me honest, right? And we see he's losing his patience. His paranoia is taking over, it's fueling his illogical behavior, right? He does, she says, right? I hope you think I'm honest. And he says, right? No, he makes all these weird analogies. And then she says, alas, what ignorant sin have I committed? Line 74. And that's when he starts suggesting that she's cheating. Uh, Again, are you not a whore? Um, and then Amelia comes in. Amelia and Othello are talking. Now, Amelia, once, right, we see Amelia says he is here's a change indeed. She recognizes that Othello's jealousy is taking over. Iago comes in. Uh, Again, he kind of continues to manipulate the situation. Um, and Desdemona just kind of plays into his hands. Um, then Rodrigo comes in, right? And obviously, as Iago's plan is continuing, um, Desdemona and Amelia leave in Act 4, Scene 2, right? Rodrigo comes in, and he's actually, I think this is the third time he's confronted Iago, and he says, you know, I'm going to confess myself, Desdemona. I hope that she's going to give me my jewels back, right? Because remember, he's been giving Iago jewels and money, thinking Iago's giving it to Desdemona to woo her. And what does Iago do? If you look on lines 217, it's such a great straw man, red herring combination here. He says, I grant it indeed hath not appeared, and your suspicion is not without wit and judgment. So he immediately flips it on Rodrigo, and Rodrigo says, I think you're messing with me. He says, wow, you're really smart, right? You've come to a good conclusion. You're right. It looks bad. Now he immediately red herrings, right, and compliments him on it. And it almost like kind of bumps up Rodrigo's ego, right? And he says, right, I understand why you're upset. If thou the next night follow and joy, not Desdemona, take me from this world with treachery and devise engines for my life, right? Line 223. So again, he's essentially telling him, just give me one more chance. And of course, Rodrigo, right, because Iago's appealing to emotion. If you don't have her by tomorrow night, then you can kill me. Just give me one more try. He's really good at deflecting, at flipping the situation, at turning things around, at using the logical fallacies such as the red herring to manipulate the situations. Um, and essentially, at the conclusion, right, Rodrigo, because remember, he says, I've written letters, I'm going to confess. Um, so he was really upset with him at first, but he he Iago's able to deflect attention from it. And Rodrigo is now once again continuing with the plan, just as Othello wants him, because Rodrigo's starting to realize what's going on here. So that being said, I'm going to kind of stop for now and pick up with the video review from here on out, kind of ending at Act 4, Scene 2. So thank you for your patience, and more to come. It's getting really interesting. Stay tuned.